Another evening had passed with another busy morning. It was mid-afternoon once more, and Twilight had gotten the third line of the spell down. The fourth had been easy enough for her. She was starting to get more and more used to the grammatical rules from long ago. Previewing the fifth and sixth verses, she noticed that the first halves of each were the same. Likely, the way it was written was meant to be almost ritualistic in its execution. To Twilight, that just meant less learning. "Shouldn't be too long now," the unicorn stated. "At this pace, I should have it, the last two parts, down by tonight. And the second half of this whole incantation is fairly repetitive." "Indeed. I'm impressed with how fast you're getting this down. Perhaps later we can attempt to hold a conversation using only this language," Celestia joked. As serious as things were, she needed to keep Twilight at ease as best she could, and keep her mind off everything that was happening. "I don't know if I've figured all that out yet. I'm always willing to learn, though. Maybe after I've used this we can try to." Twilight resumed practicing the fifth verse, where she paused, Gilda appearing in her thoughts. "What's on your mind?" Celestia asked. "Just thinking about what happened to Gilda again. Trying to figure out who else she might have a grudge with. We went over the rest of Ponyville when we spoke to Private Eye a few nights ago, and I couldn't think of any pony." "Well, aside from the Crystal Empire, where else did you and your friends visit?" "Let's see. We've been to Appaloosa, Dodge Junction, we were able to get to Cloudsdale with that cloud-walking spell. Been to Camelot, obviously. The Crystal Empire, like you just said. I can't think of anywhere else we went at the moment." "Why?" The princess rubbed her chin in contemplation. An idea was beginning to form. She realized, based on Spike's letter, that the detective had already sent warnings ahead to every pony he could think of. Perhaps a notice from royalty would garner more immediate action. Though she didn't find it necessary to send correspondence to the authorities in any towns Pinkie hadn't visited. Unless she had become completely unhinged, there was at least a method to her madness that they were aware of. A quill and several sheets of parchment popped into existence in front of Celestia. She quickly began to write, rousing Twilight's curiosity. "Princess, what are you up to?" She continued writing as she addressed her student. "Well, we know Spike and Private Eye have gotten in touch with who they could. I don't know what they said, but we do know, based on your encounter with Pinkie, and how you were able to escape, that a good, sudden jolt of pain from the waking world is enough to bring you out of the nightmares. I'm going to send a few letters to the mayors of the places you've mentioned, and, well, send them a warning isn't the right word. More like a suggestion." "I don't follow." The first of the notices evaporated into the mist and floated out the balcony door, on its way to its intended destination. Celestia continued, clarifying. "If every pony had a partner to sleep by with proper preparations, they can forcibly wake their friend, whether using a bit of fire, poking at them with something sharp, or whatever works. I'm also asking those in charge to call emergency meetings to inform the citizens of these instructions. Even though the situation is dire, they may not respond so quickly to a missive from a detective as they would from me. If this works, we could prevent the worst from happening." "What about the nightmares themselves? Won't ponies start to wonder what's happening if Pinkie shows up and tries to kill them?" "We'll dismiss it as just night terrors, nothing more." Twilight boggled at the princess's actions. Outright lying to her subjects was something she never expected out of her teacher. "That just doesn't seem right. Shouldn't you at least tell them what would be happening? The last thing we need is for ponies to start panicking. The first thing they would do is try to fight off rest, and we know fatigue takes its toll not only on body but on the mind as well. Who knows what they could end up doing to themselves or to others in such a situation?" Celestia said as she finished putting together the second letter. "I suppose that makes sense. I just hope it works." "So do I." The sun was starting to set in the dusty little town of Appaloosa. The orange and red tints painted on the sky blended with the ground so well that one could have had a hard time seeing where one began and the other ended. A cool, gentle breeze trickled the throats of the celebrating citizenry. It had been a year to the day when the ponies of Appaloosa and the buffalo tribe out in the plains put aside their grudge, learned to work together, and share the land in harmony. It was a festive occasion that had the streets full of partygoers from both sides singing and dancing merrily. It seemed like every pony in town and every buffalo in the herd was present. The most popular treats for the celebration were, of course, the famous apple pies that made it all possible. However, sitting alone in front of the local store was Brayburn. Despite the joy filling the air, he couldn't help but still feel horrible. It was just a week ago that he heard his cousin Applejack had been mysteriously burned to death in her home in the middle of the night. So far, no pony had any answer as to what happened. Foul play was suspected, but there were no leads. The last thing the broken-hearted stallion wanted to do was celebrate. But Brayburn was fairly well known in the town, being one of the suppliers of the trees that made their own orchards. He had to make an appearance, whether he wanted to or not. As hard as he tried, he couldn't maintain a smile for longer than it took to greet an occasional passerby. From behind, another pony familiar to the townsfolk sat down next to him, a frosty mug of cider in his hoof.
"How are you holding up, Bray?"
Sheriff Silverstar asked.
"All right, I guess. I just don't want to be here, you know."
"I understand.
Still going to be a while before the party starts to break up. I don't suppose you've had anything to drink?"
"I know what kind of something helps to ease the pain a bit," the sheriff suggested.
"Nah, ain't had nothing. I always felt that kind of thing was meant for good times like this. Wouldn't help me none,"
Brayburn said sadly. The apple felt a hoof on his shoulder.
"Look at it this way, son. You think Applejack would want to see you moping around like this? Course not. She'd want you up and about and having fun with what you have done right now. I ain't suggesting you forget about her, nothing like that. Remember the good times you had and go from there. Celebrate their life. You know what I'm saying?"
"Yeah, I know what you're getting at.
Just been rough is all." "Well, it will take time. You'll be okay."
Silverstar looked down the road and saw two friends approaching. Judging by the looks on their faces, they saw what bad shape Brayburn was in as well.
"Besides,"
the sheriff continued,
"your friends wouldn't want to see you like this, especially one in particular."
"Huh?" Brayburn's question was met with a pointing hoof. He looked and saw Chief Thunderhooves and Little Strongheart a few paces away. Seeing the young buffalo helped bring a small smile to his face.
"Hello, Sheriff. Hello, Brayburn," Thunderhooves said pleasantly. "Quite the celebration today, isn't it?"
"Yes, sirree. Been great so far." The little calf looked away nervously as her cheeks flushed when her gaze met Brayburn's. For a moment, the young stallion thought that maybe he could forget about all this lousiness he felt. Unfortunately, the bit of happiness faded as fast as it came. "Brayburn, you okay?" Little Strongheart asked.
"Not really. Just thinking about Applejack."
She sat down beside him and rested a hoof on his shoulder. "I'm sorry about what happened. I wish there was something I could do."
"It's all right, darling. I'll be fine."
Little Strongheart laid her head against Brayburn. Though he was grateful for the support, he was too upset to show it. Silverstar cleared his throat and glanced at Chief Thunderhooves.
"Say, Chief, want to go get a drink? I think the Salt Lick has this new brew they made up for tonight." "Sure, Sheriff. Lead the way."
As they drifted further away from the grieving couple, the stallion peeked back and grinned. He had noticed Brayburn and Little Strongheart hanging around together a lot over the last several months, but his friend never really said much about what they'd do while they were out and about. But he had his suspicions. It was becoming obvious to Thunderhooves as well back in his tribal home too. Neither party had a problem with the two seeing each other. Besides bringing them some happiness, it helped strengthen the bonds the town and the tribe shared. "Hopefully she'll be able to bring him out of his funk," Silverstar remarked.
He's been miserable for a few days now, but that can't be helped. What's wrong? His cousin Applejack was found dead about a week ago in her home. No one has any idea what happened. Oh, my. I'm sorry, Sheriff. I hope you'll be all right. I think you'll be fine after a while. See? The large buffalo glanced back. Little Strongheart and Brayburn were curled up together, doing their best to get through the stallion's heartache. Yes, he should be. Those two have been getting rather close lately. She hasn't exactly been keeping it a secret around the village. Granted, she hasn't said anything outright, but we're all pretty aware of how she feels. Silver Star nodded as they walked to the watering hole. Well, I'm glad they seem to be happy. But I ain't gonna lie, Chief. There isn't any new drink the bar has. I was just trying to give them some privacy. But I'll still get you a drink or two. Everything's free today, thanks to the party. Thunderhooves chuckled at the revelation. That's okay, Sheriff. I had a feeling that's what you were up to. How have things been here in town otherwise? Quiet as usual. Nothing really ever happens here that makes me have to fill out reports or nothing. I did get some weird letter from what was the name? Private Eye or something the other day. Said some nutjob pony got loose and ran off to who knows where. Haven't seen nothing unusual yet. I hope it stays that way. As the buffalo and stallion continued their trek to the tavern, they passed the sheriff's office. It had been locked up, closed for the evening about an hour ago. Through the window to the right of the front door, Silver Star's room, a brief flash appeared from inside. Though it was noticeable enough to be seen in the fading sunlight, neither of them saw it. A scroll embroidered with the Equestrian royal seal landed on his desk. The torches were lit up down the streets of Appaloosa. The night had arrived a little over an hour ago, and a few minutes previous, Silver Star and Chief Thunderhooves stumbled out of the salt lick, laughing loudly and smelling of what would normally be expensive booze. The small stallion was somehow standing up straight as the large, inebriated buffalo laid a drunken foreleg across his comparatively tiny back. I can't believe you said that to her, Sheriff. I'm telling you, she was coming on to me, and it was so terrible. I had to embarrass her like that. She left me alone after that, I tell you what. Silver Star slurred, poking his friend in the chest as they enjoyed a merry story on the way out. Oh, goddess, that's great. The chief looked up, his eyes swimming as the full moon in the clear twinkling sky. Getting kind of late. Should round up the tribe and start heading home. Nah. I can probably set something up in my office. I've caught myself sleeping there more than often on real slow days. Besides, I think I should see a few of your brothers leaving with a few of the town's mayors, so I'm not sure if they'd want to go anywhere just yet. The sheriff said, chuckling in a fit. His level of intoxication was no better than Thunderhooves. The buffalo glanced around, barely able to stand up straight. Where's Strongheart? She's probably with Brayburn somewhere. Those two make a cute couple. Yeah. Thunderhooves took another step and promptly fell, chin first, into the dirt. He rubbed his forehead, already feeling the painful punishment that came from too much alcohol, and his head continued to spin. Silver Star stumbled back a step, drunkenly surprised at what had happened to the tumbling buffalo. Whoa! Easy, big guy. Come on, let's go to my office.